So, which one do you want to do? This one? So there's an uprising in Hong Kong right now. There is a broad set of concerns at stake. And in the politics in Hong Kong, as far as the sort of capital class goes, there's people on both sides of this division. There's a very large part of the business sector there that has no problem with further and further integration with Beijing. The story goes back to at least the modern iteration in 1997 when Britain returned Hong Kong to China. The agreement was one country, two systems. And that was that Hong Kong really had established a level of basically liberal protections for its citizens. Beijing has never fulfilled that promise entirely at all. And in the last couple of years, things like this extradition law, which was put on the table, which would have allowed citizens of Hong Kong to be extradited to mainland China, have helped grow a serious protest movement. As I say, I think there's people on the business side that are comfortable, that are on both sides of this conflict. If you have a left perspective, and one of the reasons I get very annoyed with some of the kind of silly blind China apologism is that labor is definitely extremely concerned about this in a variety of ways. I mean, one area is that even just Hong Kong, because of its relative openness, is a place where labor unions can base for monitoring labor conditions inside China. I mean, if you're concerned about the brutal conditions that Apple, as an example, uses in China, you're almost certainly getting some of that information filtered out of people that are based in Hong Kong. So if you are concerned about those issues have a serious stake for you with regards to what's happening in Hong Kong. And look, it's a broad liberal rights movement, and that's a valid thing, frankly. And I think also there's no doubt that Xi Jinping, who has consolidated more power for himself than any Chinese premier since Mao, and in a context where international norms are shifting, that India can just go into Kashmir, make that move, the stakes are really escalating. This video is fascinating. One, it should give a lot of people pause about our critique of the liberation struggle and the left movements in South Africa. I've done a lot of coverage of South Africa, and there's no doubt that there's internal problems in the ANC. There's also no doubt that the economic freedom fighters have areas where there should be very serious critiques. But this woman from South Africa who emigrated to Hong Kong is a great example of the type of class politics that those that wanted to rebuild South Africa into a proper democracy were up against.
Yeah, this is bigger than her. She represents something that
right, and that's why please pray to God no one finds her name and bothers her personally or anything like that. Yeah. This is an avatar for an attitude. It's like that's the only reason that this is relevant.
It's like you crystallized in amber sort of like what the Settler Project would become.
Precisely, yes.
From South Africa to move away from this. Like South Africa has this.
Come on, mate.
I don't want
Come on, mate.
This is not the Hong Kong that I've learned to love. Like everybody is so everybody in Hong Kong is so lovable and welcoming for all foreigners, and then to experience this, it hurts me. It really hurts me.
How do you feel about the police actions to the protesters?
There's a good and a bad to both protesters, and there's a good and a bad to police. And I just wish both sides would just stop. Like, I understand what they're fighting for, and I appreciate what everybody's fighting for.
It's easy to say.
Wow, those lovable Orientals.
She's got
right?
no skin in the game, except for I just want to be in a global financial hub with very limited rights and mass inequality that could be invaded and formally reoccupied.
She understands
government.
that, Michael, but
I get it.
But the people were lovable, okay?
The people are lovable.
They were welcoming,
yes.
humble, inscrutable.
Oh, they had a certain wisdom to them.
We got some more.
A certain pre-verbal sense of knowing. All right, let's go. Yeah.
I wish both sides would just stop. Like, I understand what they're fighting for, and I appreciate what everybody's fighting for, but this is not what we're supposed to be like. We're supposed to be fighting together, not against each other. This is not the Hong Kong that I want to be in. Really, I don't. I would rather go back to South Africa if this is what I'm going to be living with for the next few years. It's unacceptable.
Wait, if they're all fighting...
Please don't return. We already have enough difficulties. Can you maybe look at Singapore? This is another area in Asia that is highly repressive, but does not have political instability now.
Yeah, you want to keep going.
Can
to
you
Singapore.
maybe go to Singapore?
Wait.
Could you please consider that?
If we're all fighting together, who are we fighting against?
Yeah, the protesters and Xi Jinping need to
Xi
fight on the
Jinping
same
and
side.
the woman who had her eye shot out by a beanbag just need to sit down, iron out, and say like, "Look, this South African lady is feeling very uncomfortable."
Yeah, we
That's a great clip.
We all need to fight to make her chill. Can you look? Maybe. I have heard that Kuala Lumpur is having a boom. Please consider. There is always Dubai. The servants will not even look at you in the face. You can buy a passport, I assume, in your economic bracket.